My name is Carrie Hillier. I am a regional director with CAIO out here in the Seattle, Washington area. This presentation on behavior management techniques for supporting young adults with ASD was created by my colleague Jagmeet, who is a senior regional director down in California. All right, before we jump in, a brief overview of CAIO and what we do. We're a team of over 600 professionals in the behavioral health world. We provide a variety of services, including ABA therapy, both in-home, center-based, telehealth, parent training, behavior consultations, and school and community supports. We serve all over the West Coast and Pacific Northwest, and we're just starting to integrate further east: California, Oregon, Washington, Utah, Arizona, Colorado, and Texas. Okay, what we're going to review today are positive behavior support strategies, selecting skills to teach our learners, and how to plan for the transition to adulthood. We're going to talk about who's involved in the planning, how we decide what skills to teach, what if families and individuals want, when should we start planning, and finally, putting all that together. Quickly, what is ABA? What is it that we do? ABA is the science in which the principles of behavior are applied to change socially significant behavior. Behavior is described as anything that can be observed. It doesn't focus on mental states or traits. We like to say, if a dead man can't do it, it's behavior. It's a subfield of psychology that focuses on objective behavioral science. Examples of principled behavior: we use reinforcement, prompting, shaping, receptive identification, imitation. We've done extensive research over the past half century, and it's proven that ABA to be the most effective intervention for treating individuals with ASD and the effects on the developing nervous system. The most important part is that focus on the social significant behaviors. We want this to be meaningful to the individuals in which we treat and those in their community. Are we ready to meet the needs of teens and adults with autism? We know this works for young children, but what about our older families, older kids and learners? The number of people with autism continues to grow. It is estimated that there are over 50,000 teens per year will age out of school-based services. So how do we support them? Are we ready? The World Health Organization defines adolescents as anyone between the ages of 10 and 19, and the young adult as anyone 20 to 24. We polled our BCBAs and BCBA trainees, those studying to become BCBAs here at CAIO, and found that most are working with clients ages 0 to 9. A few are working 10 to 14, and even less are working with kids 15 and up. 35% of the BCBAs at our agency who design treatment plans for clients 10 and up are not specifically focusing on the skills needed for a successful transition. Ethically, we need to be ready to meet the needs of these 10 to 24-year-old clients, even if right now caseloads are made up of kids younger than that. A successful transition starts early, and it's something that many of us will continue to, or at least start to, work with adolescents. If we aren't seeing them now, we're going to see them later because they're going to continue to grow and need services. So does it work? Does ABA work with these older learners? It's a really big question, but the short answer is yes, it does. In 2009, the National Autism Council, or the NAC, found that there were 11 established treatments that had beneficial and proven outcomes for individuals on the autism spectrum. The overwhelming majority of these interventions were developed in the behavioral literature, so ABA, behavioral psychology, positive behavior support. And to expand on their research, in 2015, they found that a number of strategies that we use in children and adolescents appear to be effective with adults when they're developed in a way that's meaningful for them, so in a developmentally appropriate way. The first strategy we're going to look into is the positive behavior support strategies. Self-monitoring tools, offering choices, visual schedules, token reinforcement systems, and behavior contracts. So what is a self-monitoring tool? Self-monitoring tools build independence and accountability for their own behavior. It increases participation in designing own behavior management programs, and it promotes generalization of skills. What does it do? How do we create it? It's created by identifying a target behavior to monitor. It can be anything. It can be sitting in a chair. It can be completing homework, whatever it is. It can be targeted. We'll look at how often do we need to monitor it? How often are those checks going to be to know, am I engaging in the behavior in which I'm supposed to be? And by creating these self-monitoring systems, we get buy-in from the child to implement the plan because they are providing that check-in themselves and that own monitoring. What does it look like? This one looks like one that we might use for a slightly younger user. You can modify them as needed. I just realized right now, is my screen showing for you guys? My screen just went black. Are you guys able to see my screen? I'm so sorry. Someone chat in there. Okay, phew, thanks, Victoria. I just had a panic. My screen just totally shifted. Thank you so much. I apologize, team. Let me get back on here. This self-monitoring checklist, looks like one we might use for a little bit younger kids, but it can really be anything. It has a section for them to literally check it off. Did I do this task? A space to identify what the task is. And then these ones are going to be the type where you put hands to self on there, follow directions, quiet voice. Did you do each of those things? Awesome. Great work. You're engaging in the proper behavior. Well, the next positive behavior support that we like to use is offering choices. There's so many benefits to offering choices. It increases an individual's ability towards self-determination, and it's been shown to be an effective intervention when trying to change challenging behavior, most specifically. All people have a right to choose and a right to refuse. There's balance between teaching skills that lead to greater independence and maintaining personal liberties. One's own personal liberties include more than what's guaranteed by the Constitution, but it also includes the right to be left alone. And I think that's something that's often forgotten with a lot of our learners, especially those that are more impacted. It also has the right to engage in your own determined leisure activity. What do you want to do? Not what do I want you to do? And even the right to brush your teeth at whatever schedule or step that you want to do it at. That is a right of an individual. Diana, yes, we'll get those slides emailed to you, no problem. Inclusion of the individual in the decision-making or choices allows for choice in determining their future. We as clinicians need to emphasize teaching independent living skills as well as the functional behaviors around what are preferred of the client. And that might include how to make a choice and them having priority on what are we teaching them and what's meaningful. It should not go unsaid that the skill of making a choice might need to be taught as an actual instruction. Choosing can be hard for individuals and children. We need to teach them how to make a choice. What does that look like? All clients should be given the opportunity to make choices that will impact their daily lives. It really does impact a person's quality of life when they say, can I pick this one? Get told yes, and then they get to do it, even if it's just hanging out, being low key. Then the components of offering choices include providing a limited number of options and be flexible. When you're providing the choices to someone, if they offer another one and it's not in a negative or negotiative manner, go with it. That's okay. They're providing you an insight of what's motivating to them in that moment. Include the procedures and priority of what's being taught and make the choices clear and specific. Sometimes learners can't decipher when there's a whole bunch of things going on, but make it simple. Do you want to go sit down in the blue chair or the red chair? You don't care as long as they're sitting down in a chair. Provide a choice. What does it look like? It can be something as simple as, you know, they need fruit for dinner. So do you want the apple or the orange? They're getting value in making that decision on their own and selecting something that's giving them autonomy in that choice. You don't care. It's an apple or an orange. The transition. Do you want to transition away from the computer to bedtime in 5 minutes or 10 minutes? No big deal. Provide the choice. And then how to get dressed, where to pick the clothes from, what clothes to put on. These are all things that ultimately the terminal goal is completed. Your goal for them is completed, but they're getting that autonomy in the decision-making of completing the choice and selecting the choice. Another tool we use often and should be utilized when working with adolescents and young adults is those visual schedules. The benefits of the visual schedule include gaining independence. They know what's coming. Learn a lot more quickly when you're following a task list. You can prepare or adjust for changes. It can be really frustrating when you already don't know what's coming, and then your preconceived idea of what's coming doesn't happen. That's a lot. Have a schedule. Show and move the component parts around to show the change. It can decrease a lot of that anxiety and frustration, and it does reduce regressive and self-stimulatory behaviors, often because those stereotypic behaviors can be paired with a self-soothing or anxiety type response. So if they know what's coming, that anxiety will go down. Visual schedules provide us with a lot of important information. They teach us to follow rules. They can be used across a variety of settings. A visual schedule, you might start it in the morning at home. The kiddo can take it with them to school, follow it at school, and then finish it up with the community, knowing throughout each step they have an idea and a plan of what's coming. It allows learners to understand expectations and what needs to get done. I follow a written schedule every day, which is just a form of a visual schedule. The idea of knowing what's going to occur is something all individuals deserve. They should know what to prepare for and how to prepare. The schedule is going to allow that. You can even break them down to how do you complete each of these things? If we need you to complete this academic task, well, first, go get the pen. So there's a picture of a pen, then the paper, then this, and you can break it down to complete more complex skills. It also allows someone to know, when is it done? When are we all done with this activity? When it looks like this, or when I see the red blinking light go off. All of those things provide very important information to different learners. It also allows kids and individuals to make choices about what they do. If someone can create their own visual schedule today, if they know I have to do something with all 10 of these icons, but it doesn't really matter what order, they can select and put them in the order in which they want to do them. Again, increasing that autonomy and buy-in for completing the necessary tasks. What do visual schedules look like? I think this one's really cute. It's actually a text schedule with a small visual next to it. It had the time on there for this learner. Did he do it? Yep, put a little check mark on there. There's also a little self-monitoring embedded in this one. And it looks like at 3 o'clock for 3:30, there was learning in the classroom or teaching in the classroom, and there was a change. So they indicated something changed and they were able to reflect on that. Another support that we utilize are token reinforcement systems. The benefits of token reinforcement systems are great. There's increased selection of reinforcers by more natural reinforcement, an increased teaching rate, lesson satiation on those big terminal rewards, increased sense of time, because often these things you're given a little token over the course of a longer duration or a longer sitting of task to gain access later. And it also increases the ability for delayed gratification. So instead of someone completing a step in their routine, getting access to an iPad or an edible or whatever it is, they complete the step, get a token. Complete the next activity, get a token. And maybe it's 5 tokens down, and then they can exchange their tokens for preferred items or preferred activities, breaks, whatever it is. So there's delayed gratification there before they're getting that terminal reward. Token systems are systems in which the individual earns the tokens for the target behaviors. I guess I also got ahead of myself here. And once completed the collected or predetermined number of tokens, he or she can trade them in for an activity that they desire. They're incredibly effective tools for shaping behavior. They involve the delivery of the token contingent on a specific desired behavior. The student accumulates all those tokens, and then they'll exchange it for their reward. As always, the token reinforcers should be individualized to their preferred items and activities. And one type of token economy is the token board. The board can be placed on a student's desk, and it can be Velcroed so they can take it to different classes or different parts of their day. Teachers and individuals working in the classroom should all be trained on the delivery of reinforcement. Perhaps the goal is sitting and facing forward for one particular learner. The teacher might be leading the lesson, leaving them no hands to deliver access to reinforcement. Well, then the parents can walk by, and if it's every 2 minutes, they're supposed to be looking forward. They get a token on their desk, go to the next kid, and you can provide them to a number of learners throughout the classroom. And this particular child knows, oh, I got a token. That means I was doing what was expected, which was sitting and facing forward. Token economies are one type of secondary, or what we call conditioned reinforcement system. The tokens begin as pretty much neutral stimuli. They don't mean anything because often they're just a check mark, a star, a button, or a penny on a token board. They don't really mean a whole lot or don't have a lot of value to them. However, as the tokens become increasingly associated with that terminal reward, they themselves become mildly reinforcing, which makes learning that much more motivating. So when a kiddo starts to get to the point where they learn, oh, I got a token. Yes, that means I was doing the right thing. I want to be facing forward. I want to be sitting down because the token itself has meaning. That's the best place to get because you know you have effectively conditioned this thing to have some value. What do they look like? Here's 2 examples. I love the penny one because it starts to teach money sense, that money can be valuable. Looks like this one says, I'm working for, and there's a little spot to put a picture, a reminder of, hey, what are we going for? Is it the slide? Is it the iPad? Is it alone time? You earn the 5 pennies, you get access to that thing or that time. The other one is little, yes, great work, nice job. So little affirmations within, which is lovely and adorable. Some teachers and families like to use images of the targeted behavior. So someone maybe sitting down cross-legged, and that's what every image is. I like to let the kids pick it out if they're able to, so that the token itself has a little bit more value. Another system that we like to use are behavior contracts. These are definitely my favorite system, and I use with pretty much every learner over probably the age of 9 that I work with, if they're able to understand the content. The benefits of behavior contracts: they provide clearly defined rules and consequences for behaviors. It increases the accountability to engage in the appropriate behavior and allows parents, teachers, and the individual to work towards a mutually agreed upon goal. The components are identifying what is it that you're working for. Talk to the kiddo. They're able to say, I'm working to get through my school day without having a phone call to mom or dad. Awesome. Let's make that our goal. What are we agreeing to here? Both this individual, but also the other individual who's responsible for delivering the reinforcement if they get it, or the consequence. What are we agreeing to if you do this? What do you earn? What are your privileges by doing it? And then what if you don't? What happens then? And then they sign it. Both parties sign it. One of my favorite stories is that I was working 4 years ago with a gal. She's 15, she was in high school and very bright. Our goal for her was to get through Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, wearing her approved classroom clothes or school clothes. And then Fridays, she could have dress however you want Fridays. She hated it, but she agreed. She did the contract. And so we signed it. We got there. We talked about what are you going to get? We talked about what we're going to do if you don't and what my responsibility was and her teachers. And we signed it. And then not too long later, she didn't do it. And she engaged in one of the behaviors that we didn't want to see. She wore something to school that she wasn't supposed to. We checked in, we reviewed the contract together, said, hey, you agreed to this. And she said, did you actually read what I signed? I said, no, I just saw a J and her name started with a J. And I thought that I just assumed she signed it. She signed it John Hancock. And she said, I didn't sign that. That is not my signature. That's not my name. So pro tip, make sure they actually sign their name if you've got a clever learner like mine. It's kind of my favorite. We fixed it. It was very smart, Victoria. Note to self, always double check. But it was adorable. These are really effective. It does kind of hit that nerve of there's accountability here. I said I would do this, I signed it, and so now I do need to do it. So next step here, how do we select which skills to teach? There's both objective skills and subjective skills that are going to create success in adulthood. The concept that was presented by Halpern suggests that success in adulthood is a culmination between subjective and objective goals. By objective goals, I'm referring to socially valid norms such as employment, maybe independent living. Subjectivity refers to what is valid to that individual, what matters to them. How do they perceive these socially valid norms? And thus, treatment planning needs to be adjusted accordingly. We need to make it meaningful for this individual. An example might be, it's more than just sustaining competitive employment, but rather sustaining competitive employment that fits their interests and supports their level of ongoing success. So where do we start? There's law and there's better practice. The law is via IDEA, which 2004, that transition planning must begin no later than the first IEP to be in effect when the child turns 16 or younger if determined appropriate by the team. I think in Washington State, where we are, it might be 14. Other places it could be 15, but it's around that age group, high school. We and the other researchers know planning and preparation should begin well before high school. And not one conversation is going to create a well thought out program. We need to talk about it again, pivot, reassess, and check in often and regularly. Planning well before high school is necessary. We know that. Skills take time to learn. It takes time for me to learn it. It takes time for another person to learn it. You don't learn daily living skills overnight, and you often don't learn all of them as a high school student. You might have already need some practice earlier on to get prepared for when you are a high schooler. It takes a lot of time to come up with a well thought out process. So the more we can formulate a program, trial it, assess, reassess, and come together as a team so that when we get to those high school years, this learner's plan has been really tailored to their needs and their interests, and also the terminal goals for them outside of high school. That's when we're going to be in the best shape. So what do we target? In our review of the research, as well as taking both parent and individual desires into consideration, we've identified that there's a lot of potential domains where skill acquisition can be targeted to increase adolescent overall independence as they enter adulthood. Some of these are independent living skills, community-based living, how to manage health, what is housing going to look like, employment, or other options. You don't have to get a job, maybe, and then self-advocacy. While one domain might be really important imminently, it's important to the individual or family. Many skills across domains increase independence, and it might impact, by targeting that one, it might have a benefit to all those other domains as well. So now we're going to look at what types of skills we're targeting based on our current research. While we're creating the individual treatment plan and the skills and identifying the skills to be teaching, who do we involve? It's important that we involve the individual for which we're planning. First and foremost, they need to be a part of the process. Additionally, parents and caregivers, adult service agencies, counselors, current teachers and case managers, SLPs, social workers, vocational teachers. Can anyone think of anything else that might be on that list? The school psychologist, perhaps, or their employer, future employer, college admissions specialist. All of these people who might be a part of their community as they take that step out of their transition-based program are going to be relevant in the transition treatment planning process. So what are families responsible for? What's the perspective for them? Families are often responsible for finding, coordinating, and financing the services in adulthood. As a clinician, I am responsible for discussing the full range of the goals of the family that they and their child have for that transition and what their goals are as they step into adulthood. In a study that was done by Henninger, individuals with disabilities responded to their own definition of successful transition to adulthood, which showed a more wide range spectrum than independent living, employment, and social development. There were other things that meant success to them, which is relevant and important to consider. Planning the transition. After we've completed our assessment, it's important to keep in mind that there's the wide range of skills that could fall under each domain here. Self-advocacy could be something as simple as asking for help when needed, but it could go up to engaging in conversations about a fair wage based on where that individual falls. Employment. Can this person follow directions yet? Can they do so with high integrity? Can they fill out a job application? Can you complete the complex duties related to the job? These are all transitional skills that we need to scaffold and start to target throughout time. And housing and residential. Can they clean up when asked? Do they tolerate loud noises? They might end up having really loud roommates or really annoying roommates. Do they know how to relieve themselves of those situations appropriately? And can they maintain a safe and healthy household? Can it be clean? So do they know how to manage their environment in a way that's acceptable? These are all different levels of important skills to target. A little bit more goes in. I'm running out of time, so I'm going to push through this. So it is never too early to start planning. We know that there are skills that we can start teaching as early as kindergarten that are going to have a robust impact on the long-term and success or feelings of success for an individual as they step into adulthood. Two that I want to point out are traveling within and around school facilities and exposure to transportation system and travel behaviors. Are they able to transition within the classroom? Are they able to get there safely and with not disrupting other people? This is a skill set because can they follow instruction with distance so that over time, can they get to their job? Exposure to transportation systems and travel behaviors. Do they know how to put on their seatbelt? Do they recognize or can they say their address? That's going to be important for when they try and take a bus in the future. So lastly, as we wrap up, remembering, although building a skill set is clearly important to the quality of life, which includes happiness and satisfaction, can be equally as important. A successful transition doesn't have to mean competitive employment or living independently. It should be viewed as whatever's individual maximum level of independence and what skills are needed, not only to get there, but also to help that individual fulfill a happy life, and that is important to them. All right, that is it today.